It is truly bizarre how evil can lurk in the most unexpected of places. One would think that a busy street frequented by partygoers would be the last place a horrible crime would happen. But in this world of monsters, no street, no nook or corner is safe. Women worldwide share the fear of walking home alone in the dark, even in their own streets. Clutching keys between their knuckles, they pray nobody is following or waiting to leap at them from the shadows. Most don't ever find their lives in danger. However, one attractive young lady, Jill Meagher, wasn't so lucky. In the well-lit and busy Sydney Road of bustling Melbourne one evening, she disappeared, never to be seen alive again. Should people who commit violent crimes ever be allowed back into society? The disgusting actions of the offender who raped and killed Jill Meagher makes a case for them never seeing the light of day again. From a troubling missing persons case to a horrific murder investigation leading to several crime scene examiners never returning to work, this case shook Australia's core. Join us for this bite-sized true crime recap where we examine the harrowing details of the murder of Jill Meagher, the suspicion of her husband, the campaign to make the streets safe for women, and the disgusting crime-laden rap sheet of the man who snuffed out her life. The evening sun was setting on a pub in Brunswick amid bustling Melbourne, Victoria, where Jill Meagher was having a drink with colleagues. She occasionally worked for the 774 ABC Melbourne radio station after leaving her parents' home in Perth, and prior to that, her home country of Ireland. In the early hours of September 21, 2012, around 2 a.m., she set off on a short walk home to her husband, Tom. During this walk, she called her father, and the two had a brief conversation about her brother. A few hours later, her husband awoke to find she had not yet arrived home. This was uncharacteristic of Jill, and he made several panicked phone calls. At 5 a.m., he was out in the streets combing the area to find his wife. The police were soon informed, and the search for Jill Meagher began. Hundreds of people joined the campaign started by her colleagues at the radio station, with Find Jill pages on Twitter and Facebook giving traction to the story of her disappearance. Many residents around Sydney Road and Hope Street, near where she lived, saw missing posters with her smiling face on them every day. The search for Jill was almost a frenzy. Where could this pretty, smiling woman have gone? 2 days after, there was no sign of Jill. However, her handbag was found by police near Hope Street, close to her residence. This was extremely odd. The area had been thoroughly searched before, so how did the handbag show up now? Suspicions about Jill's husband, Tom, began to rise. Speculation on the internet detailed how she was perhaps leaving him, and in a fit of rage, he kidnapped and murdered her. It made sense, according to netizens, considering her handbag was found near her house, meaning she had nearly arrived home. The police also viewed the 80 or so phone calls Tom made to Jill's phone as misleading. As the days went by with no sign of Jill, investigators switched gears and began to look at the case as a potential homicide. A break in the case eventually shifted suspicions away from Jill's husband. With no evidence of the foul play found in their home, plus his phone location identified as being within the vicinity of the house for the entire duration of the night Jill disappeared, Tom increasingly appeared innocent, a relief no doubt following the harsh comments in the media. 3 days after her disappearance, video footage from a CCTV was handed over to Victorian police investigators. The footage was taken from cameras outside the Duchess Boutique on Sydney Road, right off Hope Street. An employee handed over the surveillance footage, which identified Jill talking to a man wearing a blue hoodie. Since the camera had only the storefront view and not the street view, the footage could not determine whether the unknown man in the video followed Jill. She did seem to be upset by his talking to her, swinging her phone at him before walking out of the camera's periphery. Acting Detective Senior Sergeant Dave Butler of the Homicide Crew 4 shifted gears. The man in the footage was lingering around the store and was the last person spotted with Jill before she disappeared. The police's search for potential criminals led them straight to parolee Adrian Ernest Bailey, a repeat sexual offender. Under overwhelming pressure from the public to make an arrest and determine what had happened to Jill, investigators gave Adrian Bailey a tough time. They also recovered a hoodie matching the one the man wore in the surveillance footage. Finally, just 6 days after she had gone missing, Bailey admitted that he had run into Jill right after she left the bar and had attempted to talk to her. He followed her, horrifically attacked her, and later strangled her in a lane off Brunswick. At nearly 5 a.m., he returned to the scene to drive off with her body. He then buried her. On 27 September, the shocked residents of Victoria shuddered as the police exhumed Jill's body from a shallow grave on Black Hill Road near Gisborne. She had been raped before being strangled. The media frenzy around the case fanned the fires of public outrage when residents of Victoria found out about Bailey's past offenses. Judge Jeffrey Nettle removed a suppression order revealing Bailey's gruesome past crimes. At the age of 19, he had raped 2 teenagers. In 3 trials between 2014 and 2015, Bailey was found guilty of sexual assault. 2 victims were sex workers and 1 was a Dutch backpacker. Overall, he had been convicted of sexual crimes against a total of 12 people and had served 11 years for rape and attempted rape on 8 counts. The Victoria Parole Board had failed to cancel his parole despite the violent nature of his crimes and a judge's statement marking him a danger to society. "You used an array of threats and violence to force your victims to satisfy your gross sexual appetite," the judge in the trial case for the rape of sex workers was quoted as saying. "You forced your victims to accept a series of sexual acts that caused them horrifying distress." The infuriated public demanded justice as a seemingly remorseful Bailey admitted, "They should have never let me out." He had allegedly fooled a sex offender rehabilitation program and been granted parole after only 22 months of a 5-year sentence. Bailey had also violated parole previously when he assaulted a man in Geelong. Had he been rearrested despite the assault not being a sex crime, Jill would still be alive. He confessed to police that he had attacked Jill because of a fight with his girlfriend earlier that night, stating, "It really wasn't my intention to hurt her. All I thought was, what have I done?" While in custody, Bailey attempted suicide. He was aware of his own incurable, depraved actions. "I'm going to jail for a long time. I hope they bring back the death penalty before I get sentenced. I have no life left." As a result of this case, far more strict laws were passed in Australia. The name Jill Meagher became a rallying cry for residents to demand safety for women, with over 30,000 marching to help bring back the night. New laws mandated that any parolee who offends while on parole would have their parole automatically canceled or reassessed. For sex offenders, parole will be rescinded in the case of a sexual offense committed while on parole or when released. At the core of all the media interviews and protests was still the devastation of Jill's husband and family, waiting for some iota of justice. A packed gallery watched Bailey being sentenced to life imprisonment for the rape and murder of Jill Meagher. An appeal filed by Bailey arguing that he had not taken perverted pleasure in the murder of Jill Meagher and thus warranted a reduced minimum sentence was dismissed in just 10 minutes on 26 December 2013. The senseless slaying of a young woman with a bright future is a reminder that the fight against violence against women is ongoing. No matter how packed the streets or long the marches, legislation and the criminal justice system have to catch offenders and punish them enough to serve as a deterrent. Sadly, what happened with Jill Meagher could have been prevented if only predators like Bailey were never allowed to see the light of day after their first crime. Jill's husband Tom went back to Ireland after the loss of his wife. But will time ever heal the wounds that this event caused the Meagher family? Will Australia's more strict laws prevent horrors like this from happening again? Only time will tell. But for now, Bailey is set to spend the rest of his life in a prison cell, never to be let out again.